And that's evidenced by the fact that of these 12 drivers, 5 are in their 40s and 5 are in their 20s. There's only 2 drivers, Bodine and Waltrip, in their 30s. And everyone said, where will the new stars come from? I think that's been answered.
Definitely so. You know, when you look back on it when my father started and stuff, when Daddy and Baker and all them come along, there was a 20-year gap between themselves and Lee Petty and Buck Baker and Joe Weatherly and the Fireball Roberts, the guys that came along then. And, you know, it was a little while before they really got any new talent in.
Well, some of that talent is now standing on pit road. Let's go to Johnny Hayes.
I'm with Darrell Waltrip. Darrell, this is a big one. Last year you won 7 races. This year you hadn't won. You've run good. You've had some good things happen to you. I think today might turn the whole season around for you.
Well, the guy that wins this race today is obviously going to make a lot of money, and this is one of the most important races we'll run this year. So this would be a big turning point for me and my crew and everybody if we could win this race today. But I tell you, after they just got finished racing on this racetrack, none of us have been out there. It's kind of like jumping in the pool for the first time. You don't know how cold the water is.
Have you got a special game plan for this race? I know it's flat out 100 miles or so. What are you going to do?
I want to try to get in front and stay there. I know that sounds like a very simple philosophy, but if I can get in front right off, stretch out a little bit and get a comfortable lead, that would really be to my advantage.
Who do you figure your #1 competition out there is today?
My #1 competition is number 9.
I sure appreciate it. Have good luck. Back to you, Mike.
At the Charlotte Motor Speedway, pre-race activity continues. We'll return to the Winston right after this word. Drivers are now coming to the pre-race stage to be introduced to the crowd, and then they'll strap into those race cars and take on a racetrack that they've not seen since yesterday afternoon. But one fellow who's just been out there for 300 fast miles is Neil Bonnet. What kind of shape is the track in?
Mike, it's a little bit cool today, but still that sun's been bearing down on the track, and the thing's exceptionally slick up in the 3rd and 4th turn, and I look for the guys to have to deal with it. A good handling race car is going to show up today.
We noticed a lot of cautions in the sportsman race off turn number 4. How did you have to adjust your driving style to deal with that part of the racetrack?
We had to make chassis adjustments during the race to tighten the car up in that particular corner, and the only thing we're looking at in this race, they've got one chance to do that. They're going to have to make the right decision.
How tough is it to guess on the right chassis setup to start this race?
Well, I'm sure these guys are calculating what they need. They've got some of the best people in the world doing it for them, but still, you're going to see some changes when this race starts.
Will Darrell Waltrip have an advantage due to the fact that you were on the radio talking to him? He owns the car you drove in this sportsman race, and he's got a pretty good second-hand opinion on what the track's like.
Well, I told him what it felt like up there in the 3rd and 4th turn. We made some changes. It helped my particular car in that race. If they can use that on his car, it might be of some benefit.
You drive a Chevrolet on the Grand National Circuit. You've already qualified for the 1986 Winston by winning at Rockingham, North Carolina in March. Is there a place on this racetrack where the Chevrolet has an advantage over the Ford Thunderbird?
Mike, the Chevrolet seem to have a lot of response right off the corner, off turn 2 and off turn 3 and 4 up here. What I'm looking at now is, since we've got this condition off turn 4, that power burst that they have might go against them. I don't know. We're just going to have to see what happens. That Ford's going to be awful tough the way they handle.
Well, if the Chevrolet jumps well off the corner, Kyle Petty, you get in your Ford, and where do you catch them and run them down?
Exactly. You catch them. I think you catch them off turn 4, off turn 2 and turn 4. It's the type of deal where, you know, like he says, the track's slick. If you've got all the power in the world and can't use it, it does you no good. When that Ford gets down and gets in that crawling gear and comes up off that corner when it's slick, then you'll see the Fords drive away, I hope.
The Chevrolet handling setup seems to change a lot when the car is either full of gas as opposed to getting toward empty, or when the track is slick, or when it's in good shape. How about the Chevrolet? Does it stay pretty consistent all day, or does it change a lot?
Mike, that's what we've been battling with the Chevrolet. The rear weight is not as good. The distribution on the rear wheels. What we're doing is putting a lot of bite in the car, which means you're putting a lot of bite in the chassis. The Chevrolets are sitting there with a lot of real low gear ratio, more than normal for a race of this length, and it's going to be interesting to see who can go the distance and still be in one piece.
How many of the car owners and crew chiefs have put hand grenades underneath the hoods of these cars to try and catch Bill Elliott?
Mike, for $200,000, they're all down with a hand grenade and they're fixing to pull the pin.
The man they've all been chasing all week long, not only Neil Bonnet and Kyle Petty, but every driver in the garage area, has been Bill Elliott from Georgia. He's won 5 races this season. Let's meet him.
Dawsonville, Georgia. Tucked away in the North Georgia mountains, it's a community with a lifestyle that's unassuming and down to earth. This is the hometown of one of NASCAR's most successful family racing teams, the Coors Melling Thunderbird, fielded by the Elliots. Already this year, the Coors Melling Thunderbird has won 5 races and 4 poles. Today, Bill Elliott can earn $200,000 with a win in the Winston. Tomorrow, Bill Elliott can collect a $1 million bonus if he can win the Coca-Cola World 600.
Yes, we're trying to work hard. You know, you have got a chance at winning $1 million, and that's something that's never been heard of in this sport.
But just 4 years ago at the fall race in Atlanta, the Elliots, without a sponsor and few resources, were ready to fold their tent, go back to Dawsonville, Georgia, and leave racing.
And that was to be our last race. We had no money to build a new car with, and no money, definitely no money to operate the next year with.
You know, we had decided that year that we had gone as far as we could go. You know, it's a situation, this business, you've got to be very well off financially.
Harry Melling came along just at the right time, and the rest of it then is history.
With the Harry Melling Tool Company purchase of the race team, things began to happen. In 1982, the Elliots finished 15 of 21 races and won $250,000. In 1983, Bill Elliott won $500,000 and his first race, the Riverside 500 in California. Dawsonville, Georgia rolled out the red carpet for its favorite son.
It seemed like everybody I'd ever known was there. A lot of the people, I think all the people from around this county came, and there was some from the neighboring counties that I knew. It seemed like every time I turned around, there was somebody there I knew.
Coors Brewing Company became a full sponsor in 1984, adding an influx of money and security that a race team needs most to be competitive. In '84, the Coors Melling Thunderbird won 3 races, 4 pole positions, and almost $700,000. Each NASCAR race team works for an advantage over their competition. The Elliots and their competition concede that much of the Elliots' advantage this year is the cumulative effect of the past years of hard work and dedication as a family.
They worked day and night, including Christmas Day, to get ready for the Daytona race.
Working hard, winning, and being the most successful race team this year has brought the Elliots a lot of fame and notoriety. How have they handled it?
Fame doesn't mean a whole lot to me, and I don't think it does to Bill either. You know, most all this stuff is you can be the highlight one day and you can barely be remembered the next.
I don't really worry about it that much. You know, there's times that I get a little bit aggravated with it because, you know, I am so much a part of the car, and it takes me away from that. And I guess that's my pride and joy. And
if Coors thought like a corporation, they'd have breweries all across the country so they could do things like cut the cost of shipping their beer. But because Coors thinks like a brewer, they have only one.
The drivers have been introduced. As you look at the first turn condominiums at Charlotte Motor Speedway, Johnny Hayes is standing by with the man everyone's trying to beat today.
Bill Elliott. You've come a long way, son. I knew you before you hit the big time. Now we're out here racing for big dollars. How does it look?
Well, I'll tell you, Johnny, you know, it's something we're going to go out and do the best we can do, and whatever happens is going to happen. And, you know, and I just pray it's a good, safe race and everything comes out all right no matter who wins.
Were you having fun now that you got all this money, or is the pressure getting to you?
Well, the thing of it is, it ain't the money standpoint of it, but, you know, I like to stay competitive and run good, and I think just the sport of auto racing is what I love. You know, when there's days you don't have a good time, which I'm sure in your job you're the same way, but we go out and do the best we can do, and we'll hope we have a good time.
Well, we all pulling for you. Have a good one.
Thank you, Johnny.
See you.
See you later.
Back up to you, Mike.
He doesn't look nervous, Neil, but it has been a little tense down there all week.
I'm telling you what, the amount of money that's on the line, the prestige that's involved and everything, you know, Bill's handling it real well, and he's got a pretty good pressure relief valve in that Ford sitting there.
It's hard to ignore the money, but face it, each of these 12 fellas, you and Kyle, are competitors. I've seen you go out and run just as hard for $600 to win as I have seen you run for $60,000.
Mike, I was up in Huntsville, Alabama about 3 weeks ago racing for $800 to win, and I ran just as hard that day as if I was buckling up out there for $200. But these guys are fixing to turn some mighty good race cars loose for the best money we've ever had.
Well, not everybody's a Bill Elliott fan, as we can see. We've said that this race may be won or lost on pit road, and Larry Newber is standing with the winningest crew chief in the history of NASCAR racing.
Well, Dale Inman was the man who was in charge through all those Richard Petty glory years. His car starts on the pole today because Terry Labonte was the champion last year. Shouting instructions to all of his crew members. Dale, what do you think? You guys going to charge right from the beginning, going to kind of hold back?
Well, I think you're going to have to go, but, you know, starting on the pole don't necessarily mean that you're going to lead the first lap because, like Atlanta and places like this, the third and fourth place people have a good shot at going to the front. So I don't think nobody can really set a strategy because you're running against the best, and you're just going to have to go every lap just as good as you can.
Is this the kind of race where you're racing against yourself in the clock, or are you going to be keying off the other competitors?
No, you got to race. You got to be there first. That's what you need to do. You just need to beat them all. You can't beat just one person. You got to beat them all.
Well, if anybody knows how to get it done, how to beat them all, it's this guy.
Kyle, that's your dad's cousin, and I think it's fair to say that he is probably the master strategist of maybe anybody on pit road at figuring out how to win a race after the green flag drops.
Definitely so. You know, I can think of 3 or 4 incidents when it came down to the last pit stop at Daytona, and we'd either change tires or wouldn't change tires or act like we were going to change tires and psych somebody out. And, you know, he knows when to pit, when not to pit, and what to do on the pit stops.
Well, there's one crew chief that perhaps among all those on pit road is responsible, if not for more innovations, but for having the guts to try different things that other people think might be a little odd, but it's won him a lot of races. His name is Harry Hyde, and he's with Bob Heiss.
Yes, Harry Hyde, you've been working for 6 months. You built a brand new car for this race, and then yesterday something went wrong in inspection. What's that?
Well, we had a quarter panel a little bit too long, and rather than start cutting on it over here, we just took it back and got another car. It was a lot easier that way.
It's kind of frustrating to work that long and set that particular car up and then not be able to use it.
Well, it really wasn't a mistake, and it wasn't anything that we got caught with. What happened is the rules got so strict. Normally they would have let that car win but here we had to weigh exactly the same amount. We had to drain our gas tanks, fill them at the union pump. We had to do everything exactly by the book, and they didn't want to deviate from that, and I really didn't mind getting tight on the rules. It makes it better for everybody.
So which car did you go to?
Well, we went back and got the old Over car that we ran last week and worked till about 2 o'clock in the morning on it. Rushed it over here, and then it runs real good, and we're expecting to win this race today.
Okay, and that's the story from Harry Hyde.
Well, Neil, that's fair. If you have a baseball all-star game, you don't play it with different bats and gloves than you use during the season.
That's right, and I was just so glad to see Harry Hyde sit here tell me he'd like to see him run by the rule book. I've driven for Harry. He's quite a character, and I'm sure that car is ready to go.
I'll bet it is. Bodine ran well in practice here, both practice for the World 600 and for the Winston. Larry Newber is standing by with a man who will start shotgun on the field. Tail end Charlie, Benny Parsons.
Well, Benny Parsons may start last in this race, but it's only a 12-car field. I don't think you're at a real disadvantage.
I don't think so. You know, on a restart tomorrow on a caution flag, we're going to be back here a few times. So this is simply like a restart on a caution flag during a 500-mile race. The problem is the inside lane is very fast.
Well, Benny, I would imagine, though, sitting back here, this kind of gives you a nice view of the race. You can really psych out what everybody else is doing, who the fast ones are.
You're right, Larry. You got to go racing.
Well, Benny's got to go racing. He's got to start his engine.
The president of the R.J. Reynolds Tobacco Company, Gerald H. Long, the man who, along with the special events department, Ralph Seagraves, Wayne Robertson, and the boys in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, dreamt up the Winston, has just issued the command to 12 drivers to fire engines, and a fireworks display worthy of 4th of July goes off in the back straightaway as thousands of balloons are released into the atmosphere, and 12 engines stir to life on pit road. That's quite a moment in sports. I don't think there's anything like it when those engines fire up.
Mike, I've been there so many times, and sitting there just waiting, enthusiastic, and when that thing you get concerned about your job, but then it's ready to go.
You're looking at the starting lineup for the Winston. Labonte in a Chevrolet. So is Waltrip. Gant Chevrolet, Elliott's Ford in row 2. Jeff Bodine's Chevrolet, Cale Yarborough's Thunderbird in row number 3. Dale Earnhardt, he's in a Chevrolet. Bobby Allison has the one Buick in the field. In row number 5, Richard Petty's Pontiac, Ricky Rudd's Ford. And in row number 6, Tim Richmond's Pontiac and the Chevrolet of Benny Parsons. They're aligned behind the Ford Thunderbird pace car, warming those engines, bringing things up to temperature. Kyle, how long does that take to get these motors up to temperature, and then you have to go around and get the transmission rear end grease up to temperature before you can go racing?
Well, on a day like today, it shouldn't take that long. You know, they'll probably let them warm up 3 or 4 minutes and then go ahead and run 2 or 3 pace laps, and that'll get the motor warmer. It'll get everything ready, and, you know, I don't think the drivers could be any more warmer or any ready than they already are.
Neil lets the engines warm up just to give the driver a chance maybe to cool down, shake off the butterflies, and just get rid of all that apprehension and concentrate on what's in front of you.
Mike, you know, they're sitting there. They got one specific job in mind. They know basically how their car is running. They sit there and clock the other guys. They're looking around each other, seeing who's where. They're ready to go. It's just the kind of deal where they're fixing to put their game plan into effect.
$60,000 race cars with $20,000 engines. Racing for $500,000 here at Charlotte Motor Speedway. You couldn't get another camper in that infield. They're the first turn condominiums. Bobby Allison owns one. Several of the drivers do. And a packed grandstand. The pace car rolls, and with it, 12 race cars. 8 are away. Now Ricky Rudd, Richard Petty, Tim Richmond, Benny Parsons. Field heads off for turn 1 on the first of the pace laps. Inspectors return to pit road, and the pit crews, their job is, well, it's not quite done. There's the mandatory pit stop between laps 30 and 39, where they'll have to come to pit road, where this race could be won or lost. Field heads off into turn number 1, and we'll be back with live coverage of the Winston right after these messages. There will be a Goodies Headache Award this afternoon. The driver that has the biggest headache in the running of this event, our Jefferson Pilot Teleproductions team will vote, and that driver will receive $500. That's nothing compared to the $200,000 that the winner will receive in the Winston. The light is out atop the safety car as it leads the field off into turn number 1. Neil Bonnet, if you're in Darrell Waltrip's car, lined up on the outside of the front row, what are you thinking right now?
You're fixing to see one heck of a drag race. These guys are really going to turn these cars coming down through here. The lead is going to be a big factor, I feel, in this race. The track is exceptionally slick, and the guy out front, there's the ball standing there. The guy out front is going to be hard to get around.
That's Junior Johnson, who owns the cars run on the Grand National Circuit by Darrell Waltrip and Neil Bonnet. Joey Knuckles, who's with the Hardee's team for Cale Yarborough, on headset with his driver. Lydell Wilson's the crew chief there.
This is one of the few times you're going to see tension in the pits. These guys are going to be a big factor with this pit stop coming up in this race.
Kyle Petty, if you're Bill Elliott and you're third on the field, what do you want to do on the start?
You know, with the strengths he's shown all year, I feel like that he'll just try to get in line, get a steady pace, and try and work his way back up through there.
Jerry Long is on the flag stand. He'll drop the green flag. Then NASCAR starter Harold Kinder will take over for the rest of these 70 laps. 100,000 plus race fans are on their feet. The pace car is on pit road. The richest race per mile in auto racing history is about to get the green flag, and green is on. Terry Labonte is quickest up through the gearbox. He's the blue and white Chevrolet right side of your screen. But Waltrip is there in turn number 1, and by half a car length, Waltrip picks up an early lead. Labonte, bottom of the racetrack, comes storming back off turn number 2, and it's Chevrolets side by side. Gant is 3rd, Elliott is 4th, Bodine has the 5th spot, Earnhardt is 6th. Turn 3, and it's still a drag race, and still a dead heat. 1 mile around the Charlotte Motor Speedway, half a mile to go to complete lap 1. Nobody's cracking the throttle.
Mike, I believe this is indication of what we're going to see all day. Nobody's going to give an inch. We're already swapping the colors of these race cars.
Green wide at the start-finish line. Harry Gant goes to the bottom of the racetrack, and there's no room. He has to tuck back in behind the 2 leaders. It is now Waltrip opening up a 1-car advantage, a scant advantage on the outside. Labonte is the meat in the sandwich, and Harry Gant is 3rd. Where are the Fords?
I don't really know. You know, Bill's had trouble yesterday. He never got a chance to really practice that car because he was having trouble with his 600 car. And, you know, he's just kind of laying back right now, feeling where it's at.
There's Yarborough and Elliott. They are running 6th and 7th on the field behind Bodine and Earnhardt directly ahead. And up front, Waltrip, Labonte, and Harry Gant. Darrell Waltrip perhaps called it in the pre-race. He'd go out there and just put his foot down and try to run away.
Mike, that was pretty impressive on the outside of this racetrack, as slick as it is, to be able to run side by side and pull out the lead. He's pretty strong right now.
Here's 1st, 2nd, 3rd. Waltrip on the left, Labonte in the middle, and on the right, Harry Gant, the 3rd place car. They have about 8 car lengths back to 4th place, Jeff Bodine. And Bodine leads a fast field of characters. There's Bodine on the left, Dale Earnhardt, Bill Elliott way up high on the racetrack, and Cale Yarborough looking underneath him. Start-finish line, lap number 3. Waltrip by just the car length. Here's Yarborough working underneath Bill Elliott down in turn number 1. And Elliott just cuts him off at the pass, but Bill can't keep that car on the bottom of the racetrack.
It's not looking like it's happening. And, like I say, he didn't get a chance to practice it yesterday afternoon. The car might be a little loose. That's where that 1 pit stop's going to really help these guys.
Junior Johnson said yesterday we've got 1 chance to beat Bill Elliott. If he guesses wrong on his setup, we can get out front and try to get away from him. Here's Waltrip off the 4th corner, back to the start-finish line. His Budweiser Chevrolet paces the field. Labonte, the Winston Cup champion, runs 2nd. Harry Gant, 3rd. 4th is Jeff Bodine, and they've broken away a bit. A lot of good racing in the back of the pack. Benny Parsons started in 12th. You just saw him side by side with Tim Richmond there momentarily. Waltrip running a pretty high line around this